All right, so good afternoon, everybody. My name is Greg Fredericks, and I'm the Regional Coordinator for Social Studies and Blended Learning here at Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES. Really happy to have you all here with us today for a very exciting webinar, and I'm going to turn it over to Linda Brandon and allow her to introduce herself in a second. But I do also want to just say hello to two of our other team members who are here today, Donna Merla and Jessica BLA, and glad to have all of you joining us here tonight for a wonderful webinar that was requested by the community on developing and implementing technology actively in the SSELA curriculum. And I'm going to turn it over to our technology consultant, Ms. Linda Brandon.
Thank you very much, Greg. You're going to mind the waiting room for me, right? Okay, great. Good afternoon. My name is Linda Brandon, as Greg mentioned, and I am the instructional technology consultant for SSELA. I've been involved in the project for many years. I've been involved in the project since it's been technology based. And I don't even remember how many years that is now. But anyway, today I'm going to share with you some ways that we have, and we want to share with you ways to develop and implement technology infused lessons in SSELA. So this is the description that you read online when you signed up for this webinar. So we want to give you some ideas on how to foster creativity and collaboration when using technology. We like to advance real-world connections and relevance in our practice. So we hope that today will give you a number of sites to use and a number of strategies to use when engaging your students in social studies. This webinar, by the way, is scheduled to last for 1 hour. And as is my usual scenario, of course, I've over-prepared, but I'm going to try my best to stay on target and keep it to 1 hour. But I also want to make sure that I welcome you to participate in this by raising your hand or asking questions or using the chat if things aren't working or if you have something specific you want to address. This is my agenda for today. You can see here, we're going to do some introductions. I'm going to do a little icebreaker. I'm going to show you plenty of examples, and I'm going to have to kind of whiz through them so that I have time to actually give you a hands-on demonstration on how to actually take an existing lesson and digitize it in right here in this webinar today. There's a page of resources that I'm going to share with you, and I hope to have time at the end for questions. The presentation itself will be shared with you, and it will be shared with you at the end of the week, or certainly by the end of the week, because I always like to take one last look and make sure that all my resources are linked and working correctly. And sometimes I think of a few after the fact that I want to add. Now, the first thing that I want to do is I'd like you to introduce yourself to me. So I have actually created a Jamboard. And I am going to ask you to log into this, and I'm going to share the link with you right now in the chat. And this Jamboard is going to kind of be like our parking lot, and it will also have some activities for you to do. So if you wouldn't mind right now, if you would click on that link in the chat, it should take you to the Jamboard, and you will then navigate to slide number 2. And grab a sticky note and add your name, your position, your grade level, and your district, if you don't mind. I always like to know who I'm presenting to. Oh, there's my phone. Doesn't figure. I like to know who I'm presenting to. I would have liked to know before the fact, but I didn't. Notice on your sticky note, I hope that you can add your grade level and your district. I don't see that right now. Do you have room on that sticky note? Oh, thank you, Carolyn. 6th grade. Very good. So move those sticky notes around so I can get a sense of who's here with me today. I see a lot of names, but I don't see a lot of grade levels and districts. So if you don't mind, you could add that in. Some of you I recognize from before. So just stay on this page right now, but I will show you that on the next slide, this is my parking lot. So again, as I'm going through this presentation today, if something occurs to you and you don't want to interrupt me, you could just go to slide number 3 on this Jamboard. So keep it open on your screen and just grab a sticky note and drop it down here. And I'm going to ask Greg to keep a little look at that Jamboard page in case people are posting questions for me. Okay, Greg? Thank you. People are still joining. All right, so I like to, we all know like how important it is to start a lesson off strong. Well, this isn't really a lesson today, it's a webinar, but we do like to start off strong. And there's lots of technology options available to us to facilitate, these icebreakers or bell ringers or whatever, anticipation sets, whatever you want to call them. Because at the beginning of your lesson, you want to pique interest, you want to spark some curiosity, you want to get your kids thinking, you want to perhaps activate some prior knowledge. So I want to start my webinar out this way. And it's not necessarily a topic that is relevant to this particular webinar, but it's relevant to our practice of social studies. So I'm going to use a site. It's called Gapminder. You may know it already. It's a wonderful website, and I want to share this with you. So on that website, and I could, by the way, I could launch this right from the slide, but instead I'm going to go to the website itself, and it's gapminder.org, just to show you where I'm getting this information from. And we're going to be dealing with these preconceived notions that we probably are wrong about. Now, if I decided to launch this directly from my presentation, you could see that I would launch that presentation right from Gapminder. I'm sorry, I did it a different way. I was going to go to, let's see, I wanted to go to, I'm sorry, here we go. Find your misconceptions. I really love this. This is a lot of data about the UN goals, but I have moved this information into a different tool so that I can vote with you right online. So this is the data that I got from Gapminder, and I'd like you all to right now, if you could, pick up your phone or open a tab on your computer and go to menti.com. And if you don't mind, excuse me, I got to get the link up there for you to use. You're going to put in a code, and we're going to measure your preconceived misconceptions about education based on UN goal number 4. So we'll be doing this live with real-time data in real time. Hopefully. My computer is, of course, acting up a little bit. There we go. All right. And I can see you're voting. So if you go to menti.com and use the code that's up on the screen, 72520266, I can see that one person has voted, and I hope that the rest of you can vote at the same time. So pick up your phone, menti.com, and use the code 72520266. So this is kind of an engaging way to get our lesson going today. It's letting you answer a couple of questions. I can see that 6 people have answered. I'll wait for a few more. And your responses come in real time. Now, I'm using Mentimeter because I love the way that it does this in real time. Your responses are anonymous. You didn't have to log into Mentimeter, which, can cause extra problems in your classroom. And I'm not really interested in who's voting how. I'm just interested in seeing how you guys answer this question. And if I went back right now to my Gapminder site, I would sadly tell you that so far, none of you have answered correctly. So I'm proving the fact that we do have a lot of preconceived misconceptions about what goes on in our world today. The answer is actually 70%. And later today, you could visit gapminder.org and you will see some data to tell you that, 70% of primary school teachers in the world, even in low-income countries, are trained. So that is a misconception that we have about education in our world today. There was another question I was going to ask you as well, but for the interest of time, I'm not going to. But again, I used I use Mentimeter to get this icebreaker going. I could have used any number of tools, many of which you probably know about. For instance, Pear Deck, I could have used, if you are a district that has Pear Deck, I could have used Pear Deck. I could have used Nearpod. I could have used a Google form. I could have used right here in Zoom, I could have used a polling tool. I could have used Padlet. So there's any number of ways that at the beginning of a period, at the beginning of a class, you can post a question, elicit answers from your students, and get them interested and engaged in the lesson that you're going to be doing. Notice that if I wanted to save your responses, in some cases, you're doing this as real pre-assessment data, you would want to save your students' responses, which would mean you would use a form like Google Forms or Nearpod or Pear Deck, and then you would be able to actually gauge which students had answered in which way. But for the purposes of today, we didn't need to. Now, before we move on, I want to take you back to this Gapminder site for just a few minutes, because it really is quite an amazing site if you haven't looked at it yet. And there's one aspect of it that I really, if I had like a full day's webinar today or even a half day, I probably would have done another activity with you based on some tools that are here. I just found this site the other day and I absolutely love it. So I wanted to share it with this group today. And it's called Dollar Street. And it's so relevant for our study of social studies, because basically what it does, it lets you visit over 250 families in over 50 different countries all over the world. And it shares over 30,000 photographs with you. And you would be able to choose how to view this data, either by families or perhaps by homes, or perhaps by, look at that. Well, we know everyone in the world has to use the facilities, so we could even compare how people all over the world use the facilities, or brush their teeth, or wash their hands, or what kind of toys or toothbrushes they use. So you can filter this data and you could compare two different countries. For instance, we might want to compare the United States and China, and then it would filter those results for you. You can read scenarios about all these different families. If you click on a particular family, it'll take you to a whole page of images, and it will let you visit that family and learn about them. Now, you know, this just really is such an unbelievably valuable tool for social studies, and it could be used in any grade level, from kindergarten all the way up through college. And it would really, you know, put your students right in front of other families all over the world, so they could compare and contrast how we live today and how other people live all over the world.
Linda, we had a question about Mentimeter. Does Mentimeter have other functions besides polls? And that was from Amber.
Yes, it does. It lets you generate word clouds. That's one of my other favorite activities to use with Mentimeter. I love using it in word clouds. I might have asked you today, you know, type in one word that describes how you're feeling today. And if 15 of you wrote happy, the word happy would appear much larger than all the other words. It's a great prompt to use at the beginning of class, again, to activate prior knowledge, or to see what students are thinking about, how they're feeling, what they know about a particular subject. So let me just say one more thing about Mentimeter before I move on, is that Mentimeter has a paid version and a free version. I've been using it for many, many, many years, and I have never used the paid version yet, and it's suiting me really quite well. So anyway, I wanted to share this site with you, Gapminder, because it does offer so many rich resources for you to use in your social studies curriculum. So when we're done with this webinar today, I've listed it on the resources page, so you would have the chance to use it. My colleagues and I in social studies are excited to use this as we revamp our grade 3 curriculum, because this certainly lends itself to comparing communities all over the world and being able to compare them on any number of different criteria, as you see here. I might even want to look at what kind of shoes do people wear in Cameroon versus in Shanghai. So take a look at that. I think you'll be very pleased with what you see. All right, so moving on along into our content here. I want to first just post the question that, so many of you have probably. What are some of the challenges that we face when we are using our SSELA curriculum with our students? And how have we been adapting lessons to meet these challenges? So I just want to mention that as we work together, my colleagues and I, Donna and Nancy and Greg, I don't think Nancy's here today. When we're working with each other and when we're working with teachers, we like to think about how we can always make our lessons better. And we do this, every single day. We always are working to make the site as good as it can be. And a lot of the changes that we make to the site are because of you. You have the opportunity to communicate with us through the site, to provide feedback to us. And I think it was actually Amber that wrote an email to us earlier today about an issue she found with a grade 1 lesson that we will have answered for her by tomorrow. So we're always working to make the site better, and we answer your questions within 24 hours. And most of the time we fix any issues that you have with that within 24 hours as well. Sometimes it might take a little bit longer because maybe a site has gone away and we have to find some additional resources, or how many times you go to YouTube and a video that you watched a week ago is no longer available. So we face those challenges all the time when we work on a curriculum such as SSELA that we like to keep alive and vibrant and living. So please use the feedback that you find right on the site. And know that we answer those inquiries regularly, and we know that because of you, our users, our site is as good as it can be. So I'm going to address a few different things, show you a few different examples of how we try to make our site more technology rich and how we adapt what we've put up over the years to meet the new challenges that technology does face, challenge us with, because it does change all the time. So I would say probably 10 or 15 years ago, and actually it's probably even longer than that, when smart boards were put in classrooms all over the world, actually, we gathered a group of teachers together to have them develop smartboard lessons that we could include in our site, because we knew that teachers were teaching with the smartboards. They found it a really valuable tool. So we wanted to have available to them lessons that they could use directly on their smartboard. Well, of course, as technology changes, as times change, technology changes. So we are changing with the technology, and we are now in the process of eliminating all of the smartboard lessons and replacing them with PowerPoint lessons that will be just as interactive and will model what lesson was included originally. So I just have a few examples up here right now. I'm going to the site right now. And I'm going to show you first an example from a grade 6 lesson, unit 6, lesson 6 file. And generally when secondary teachers were creating smartboard files, a lot of times they were creating those smartboard files as a presentation tool. So what we have done is taken the interactive whiteboard file, and you can see it does still exist here. We're not actually taking them down yet because some districts still have access to Smart Notebook and can use them. but we are now converting those lessons into PowerPoint files. So this is an example of one that we did for grade 6, and it's quite an extensive lesson. And you can see the advantages that this possesses in that now, since our students cannot log into SSELA, it's a teacher-only login, there's no way to have students log in and access this lesson, which is really quite rich and includes some hyperlinks as well. So it's been converted to a PowerPoint file. And if you're a Google district, you know that you can quite easily download this PowerPoint file and upload it to your Google Drive, and it will then become a Google slideshow. So we are very cognizant of the fact that different districts use different platforms, and PowerPoint gave us the flexibility so that any teacher could download the PowerPoint and use it in the platform that they use in their district, either Microsoft or Google. So you can see here that this includes hyperlinks that can be accessed easily, taking us right to the website. And all of the charts and maps and data is included here on this presentation. And teachers could then push this out to students through their student management system, and then students would have this as a study guide. This is not particularly interactive. This is the way the teacher designed this lesson originally as a Smart Notebook file, but all of the content is here in a visually appealing format. Now, when we go to our elementary lessons, most of the Smart Notebook files that elementary teachers created were really based on a lot of interactivity. So you can see here in our grade, I believe this is grade 2, unit 1, our holidays lesson. You can see that we had several Smart Notebook files that have now been converted to PowerPoint, and I'll show you how we have included or made sure to include the interactivity that made this lesson so engaging for students as a Smart Notebook file. So if there was a drag and drop activity, we tried to keep that in the lesson itself, and providing teachers with the instructions on how to use these activities in their classroom. So this was a closed activity. And you could see here that it used a strategy called the secret decoder, so students could move the secret decoder along and reveal these words. So that's how it worked in Smart Notebook. That's how it will work also in PowerPoint. And here's another example that I just wanted to show you quickly. Again, we tried to take what was originally created by the teacher. This was about community helpers, and we have now turned it into a student handout. So it's a drag and drop activity. Students could do this either as a whole group in front of the board, or if you have one-to-one devices in your classroom, which many of us do now after the pandemic, you could push this out to students using Google Classroom or whatever student management system you use. And then when the students get to slide number 2, you can see that these boxes are movable. And we've also made sure to design these such that students can't delete the content that you don't want them to delete. In Smart Notebook, you were always able to lock the content down that you didn't want students to move around or delete. So we provided that same opportunity here. Everything on the screen is locked in place except for these movable boxes, so that students can drag and drop the text boxes to the correct area. And again, we've used this whole area as a background. The only thing that can move on this file are the community helpers, where they would move them to their spot. So you as a teacher could use this as a whole class activity on your large screen presentation at the beginning of at the front of the room, or you could push this out to students and have them complete it individually at their desks, or with a partner, or in pairs. You don't need to save it because the next time you go to the file, it will be available for you to download again. But if you do save it, then you could push that out to your students on your student management system. So that's what we've done to convert the smart notebooks into PowerPoints.
Linda, we have another question. Are there any
Yes.
PowerPoints for teachers that can help guide us through each unit?
Ask that. What was that again, Greg? I missed that.
I think Amber's asking if there's any PowerPoints for teachers that can help guide them through the unit. So if you want to answer this at first, then I can chime in, but.
All right, well, actually, we don't have unit-wide PowerPoints. I actually, for another webinar I did at some point in time, I did create kind of a unit-wide presentation on rural, urban, and suburban that kind of encompassed the whole unit, but we haven't done that. And, you know, I don't think we're going to do that either. It's not actually that practical because, you know, our curriculum is really a guide. It's not meant to be followed step by step in sync every single day. So teachers like to kind of modify it to their own uses. But there are plenty of PowerPoints interspersed. And like I said before, as we go through our revisions, which we're constantly doing, we are creating lessons that include a lot of PowerPoints that you can use with your students. And I'm going to show you some of those and not the next slide, but the slide after that.
And can I just add to that, Linda? The other challenge to doing something like that is because we rely on a large number of external resources. And as Linda said, we like to think of the curriculum as a living curriculum. And oftentimes we're finding better and more updated resources to integrate into it. You know, we can go in, Linda and I do most of the actual physical writing and coding on the website. And so we will do things like change the scripts for a particular lesson or build in certain resources. The more things that you layer over, the more things that have to be changed. And so if we change one lesson, it's the same reason why there's not always hyperlinks in actual lessons, because if you change them in one place, you have to change them everywhere. And so it would be the same thing in a PowerPoint, but it's something that we can certainly think about going forward, trying to create some more overview style resources, if those would be helpful to you. So thank you for your question though, Amber. Back to you, Linda.
Yes. And I'm gonna show you a few things in just a minute that I think you're gonna like if you haven't already found them. So right now I'm gonna show you a few hyperdocs that we have up. The hyperdoc is an instructional model that's really been gaining in popularity lately because of its application in technology-rich classrooms, which we all have right now because of the pandemic. Most of us are working in technology-rich districts. So we have taken several lessons and actually converted them to this hyperdoc model. And I'll show you one that Donna and I just recently completed, which is a grade 4, unit 4, lesson 2. Oh, this isn't the one that Donna and I just completed. I'm sorry. This is the one on the Erie Canal, which has been up for a while. The grade 6, unit 2, lesson 4 is the one we recently converted. So like I said, when we get inquiries from you, or in this case, this lesson was revised because a website that had been crucial to the implementation of the lesson disappeared. The British Museum decided to take down their interactive site because it was Flash-based. And I don't know how many of you know that Flash technology has gone bye-bye. So a lot of these websites that were really very interactive, engaging sites for students are no longer available. So Donna and I had to come up with a quick solution to a lesson that was no longer being able to be implemented because the British Museum site had gone away. So what we did is we converted this lesson to the format of a hyperdoc. So here it is, as in its format as a hyperdoc. Does that mean you have to do it as a hyperdoc? No, the instructions are still there for you to implement in a more traditional way if you want to. But if you are in a technology-rich classroom, you can push this hyperdoc out to your students. I'm waiting for it to load. Here we go. And this could be then implemented in your classroom as a hyperdoc, which kind of follows a model of engage, explore, explain, and apply. And then we actually have a last slide on reflect. So you can see here that this HyperDoc contains a lot of very rich resources. Students have to look at some maps. They're going to they're going to watch a video. And we actually have it starting at 1 minute and 50 seconds instead of at the beginning, which you can do when you embed these YouTube videos into Google Slides and PowerPoint. They're going to examine some images. And after they examine these images and visit the Google website, Google Arts and Letters, I think it's called, I can't remember exactly offhand right now. Then they're going to answer some questions about these images. Then they're going to use some resources to enhance their understanding of the Indus River civilization, using some websites that we have curated for them. And then they are going to apply that knowledge and fill out a graphic organizer, which we've included right here on the slide, and the student can type right here in this document. And then at the end, we've given them a choice of different activities to engage with in order to show that they have understood the material that we presented to them. So this is, like I said before, this is an instructional model that's becoming quite popular now. We have a couple in grade 4. We have one on the Erie Canal as well that's in a HyperDoc format. And again, when you simply click on the link, you can see here it's going to open up the Erie Canal HyperDoc, which you can, this, by the way, is not a slideshow. This is formatted as a Google Doc. And all of the links are contained right in the document itself. So you can see it's actually linking out to PDFs that are on our site that students don't have access to. And all of the steps for this HyperDoc can be completed right here on the document, and the student can hand it into you and you can review their work directly on the document itself. So that's a format that we're embracing now as we move towards these technology-rich classrooms. Now, moving along, last year, my colleagues and I, along with teachers from all over New York State, worked on revamping grades K 1 and 2. And as we did this, we made a lot of very valuable changes, I feel. And so I've highlighted some of them on this slide. And again, you'll be able to look at these in more detail after this webinar is over today, because all of these links on the slides are links directly to those lessons. In grade 1, one of our colleagues, Nancy McGuire, who unfortunately is not here today, I was going to give her a shout out for inspiring us to create a wonderful presentation on symbols as the students were learning about symbols. And it culminates in an activity where students actually are going to play symbol bingo in the class. And we've provided everything for them right here on this site so that they could learn about the symbols through this slideshow. And then they could go ahead and play their bingo game. And we provided, I forgot how many different bingo boards for the teacher to either distribute digitally. The student could do it right at their desk on their computer, or she could laminate these, print them out, and the students could then play symbol bingo. That was a lot of fun. That was a lesson that was a lot of fun. In grade 2, my colleague and I, Donna, and Donna is here today, worked with these teachers all over the state. Whoops, that link didn't quite go back. There we go. We in grade 2, we actually developed a whole new unit on economics. We didn't have an economics unit before, and we added this unit, which consists of 4 lessons. Each one of these lessons is very technology rich. So I encourage you, especially if you're a grade 2 teacher, or if you're not a grade 2 teacher, you just might want to look at these lessons and be inspired by some of the ways that the teachers from the state and Donna revamp these to make these very engaging and interactive with students. For instance, on our needs and wants lesson, we have provided all kinds of different presentations to use with this lesson on needs and wants. If there was a book that we used in the past, we used to rely strictly on classroom sets of books or getting books from the library. But we were fortunate that during the pandemic, so many teachers were creating books on video. So you can see here that the book that we were reading in the past, Do I Need It or Do I Want It, is available as a YouTube video where the teacher is reading the book aloud. So all of a sudden the classroom doesn't need as many books as we used to have. So what we are generally doing is we will create a slideshow. We'll embed that video right into the slideshow for you to use. And we will also, so they can click directly on the video and watch the story being read. And then we've posted all of the discussion questions right here on the slideshow as well, which could facilitate the conversation about this book directly after you are reading the book. We've also created some interactive sites, some interactive slideshows where students are going to be engaging with the content directly on the slideshow itself. So again, very explicit directions for the teacher. You can see here on how to use this presentation. All the different scenarios. This is based on a website called Moonjars. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about it, but basically it talks about needs and wants and gives students budgets that they have to live within. So we've created this interactive slideshow for them so that they can use drag and drop technology to decide what they want to bring on their field trip. And they have to stay within their budget. And then they have to explain whether what they chose was a need or a want. And again, they're writing directly on the slideshow itself. And for all the different scenarios that are included on that Moonjars site. So again, engaging, interactive, student-centered. We have even in this lesson created a spreadsheet so that teachers and students could do a what if scenario using this pre-populated, pre-built Excel. It's not Excel, it's actually Google Sheets. And again, you don't need to be an expert in spreadsheets at all to be able to use this. All you have to do is enter the dollar amounts into the cells on the table at the left. So if the bike is $100, you just fill that in and you could see that your spreadsheet tallies for you automatically. So this really lets students and teachers talk about scenarios, what if scenarios, and you could see already that I'm over $100. So guess what? I can't have that bike, can I? So again, it's engaging, it's interactive, and it's very student-centered. I'm going too slow, so I have to move on ahead. I'm going to move on up to grade 5, unit 3, lesson 1. And the reason that I want to show you this today, it's again, this is a lesson that was recently revised, I would say within the last month probably, because again, we got an inquiry from one of our users like you who mentioned that they couldn't access the video or the resources that were on the site. So Donna and I quickly, actually it wasn't so quickly, this lesson took us quite a while to finish, probably a good month. But we turned it into a very engaging and interactive web lesson that includes a presentation, which is a geography review, which is what the video had been a review of geography, and with the number of questions that students answered. So we kept that question and answer format, reviewing. And again, this could be done as a whole class activity, or this could be done as a pushed out to students and done individually. So again, the students can drag the boxes to the correct area and answer all the questions, dragging things to around on the screen. And again, in most cases, we tried to keep the rest of the content locked down so that it couldn't be deleted. Oh, Mrs. Brandon, that image went away. What am I going to do? So we tried to make this as student friendly as possible. After the students engaged with these questions, teachers could direct them to some videos at the end of the presentation, should they need some review on landforms or maps and globes or review of the hemispheres, etc. And then as a bonus, we added a culminating project at the end because we found such an unbelievably fantastic website that, and that would be right here, that really lets students experience biomes almost as if they're there. They can hear the sounds in the different biomes, and they can take virtual tours of the biomes. And at the end of that activity, they're going to create something to share with the rest of the group. So again, very explicit directions for the teacher here, explaining exactly what biomes are and what the different biomes as defined by NASA or National Geographic are. Students choose a biome, they research it using, again, curated websites, which are all listed on this page. And at the end, they have a choice as to how they can present the material. I always like to give students choice and voice is so important today. And with so many technology options available today, students can express themselves in any number of ways and in a way that's going to have meaning for them. So that was our new grade 5, Unit 3, Lesson 1. Our mini units, which I hope you know are all found on the online learning page, contain a lot of templates that you can download and use in your classroom. That are very interactive and, again, student-centered. The environment and the world around me contains some Google resources that you can download and save to your computer. And as I'm running out of time, I'm not going to go specifically through these again, but if you would like some more information about this, just open up this document and you will find the activities. This is, again, a slide deck. This is a kind of a civics action project that students can take on. And again, anything that you find here, you can make a copy of, which helps you differentiate your instruction as well. Maybe some of your students can, need a little extra help on this. So you might want to download this and save a couple different versions of it based on the learners in your classroom. Now, what I really want to do next, and of course I'm running out of time, is I want to actually go through and show you how easy it is to digitize some of these lessons, okay? So the first thing you might ask yourself is, I'm closing all my windows so that I don't run out of the first thing you might ask yourself when it's time, when you want to digitize a lesson is, which lessons should I digitize? And I have a couple of guidelines that I like to go by. First of all, does the lesson lend itself to digitizing? In other words, would the student benefit by using technology with this lesson? And what are some of the criteria that you might use for that particular, option? Well, I would say, first of all, look at the lesson and see, does it have a lot of handouts, especially those that don't duplicate well? Maybe they're color maps, maybe they're color images, maybe the lesson has a lot of websites that it links to. So that would be a lesson that you would want to digitize, because students aren't logging into SSELA. So you have to find a way to make those internet resources available to them easily. Is there a video or several videos in the lesson? Again, those are the types of lessons that really lend themselves to being digitized. So I was perusing through the site and I came up with a lesson that I think readily lends itself to being digitized. And I'm just going to go through a few of the steps here with you in the last portion of this webinar. So the lesson that I chose, because I keep focusing today on the lower grades, so I chose something in grade 7, and it's in Unit 5, and it is Lesson 1 on sectional differences. Now, why did I choose this? Because I looked over the lesson, I read the steps. It's a 2-day lesson. I think it's really actually more than 2, to be honest, but we'll say it's a 2-day lesson. When I revise it, it might be a 3-day lesson. So in day 1, the first activity, by the way, I'm just going to show you down here under resources and materials for this lesson, there are 2 websites, and there are lots of student handouts. So when I look at these student handouts, I see that, they include, color maps and things that are not going to duplicate well on my copying machine. So that's why I chose to digitize this lesson. All right, so going back to the lesson, the first step 1, is activating prior knowledge, just like we did earlier today. And so the teacher is going to activate some prior knowledge about the North and the South. And again, you can do this in many different ways. Like I mentioned before, you could use a Mentimeter. You could use a Jamboard. I didn't even show you before on this Jamboard that I had today, how I had that same activity that we did before on Mentimeter. I set it up as a Jamboard as well, so that if you shared this Jamboard, if I had shared this Jamboard with you, I would have had you move these dots to where you wanted to vote. So again, when you're activating prior knowledge and you really don't care who's getting something right or wrong, you just want to see where students are, you could use a device like this in Jamboard, since students don't have to log in necessarily, but you're going to get the big picture of what do they know about the North and South, which is what they're doing in the lesson that I'm talking about right now. So they would, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm actually going to open a new slideshow just to show you how I would digitize this. And I'm doing this for you on the spot because I want to show you that you shouldn't be afraid to do this. You shouldn't think that this, oh my God, this is going to take me so much time, because once you get the hang of this, you can pretty much access the resources that are available on the website quickly and turn them into a digitized lesson. So on the first slide, I would probably just put, grade 7 unit, whoops, I don't want to take unit 5 lesson 1. And I would probably just go in here and copy right into the slideshow the introduction so that students would know what this lesson is all about. So I'm just going to do Control-C, go back to my slideshow, do Control-V, and, maybe make that text a little bit bigger for my students. But anyway, it's pretty easy to digitize this lesson. Now, the next slide is where I'm going to activate my prior knowledge. And if you look at the site, it's asking them to, list the differences between the North and the South today and historically. So you could set up a Google form, you could set up a Jamboard just like I did here. You could also use the site that's listed right on the site itself, which is a review game. And this is a word wall that we've incorporated, very engaging for kids, a drag and drop activity. By the way, you can just click start. So if I wanted to put this right on my second slide, all I would do is say, let's play a game. Okay, so how would I put this game on there? I would simply copy the URL, and I might go back and take a screenshot of this. I use my snipping tool all the time. So I would just click on my little snipping tool here, click on new, snip this screenshot right here and copy it and go right back to my slideshow and paste it. So now I've put that screenshot right on my slide too, and all I have to do then is link it up by copying the URL, clicking on the image, and using my link button. So when insert link. Oh, down here. Control V, there we go. So I pasted the link. I couldn't quite see it. It's hiding on my. So when the students get to the slide, they would click on it. It would activate this game and they could play the game. All right, so the next step is to look at some maps and documents. So again, like I mentioned before, I'm going to delete these boxes here. This lesson contains all these rich maps, okay? So right away, I want to take a screenshot of this map because I want to include it for the students. So I'm just going to say new. I'm going to snip that tool and simply Control C to copy and go to the next slide, Control V to paste. Now I'm giving the students that map, and I might also just type those questions in there that I want the students to answer about this particular map. And I would, add slides and add the rest of the maps as I see fit. Or these two images. Again, I want students to look at the images. So again, I'm simply going to snip the image. I could snip them both at the same time. I'd probably put them both on separate. I'd put them each on their own slide so that it's more readily viewable to the students. So I would paste that image and have it on the slide. Now you might start getting challenged when you go to the table where you want the students to fill out this table. And you think, oh, do I have to type this whole thing out again? What am I going to do? How am I going to digitize this? Well, again, the first thing that I would always try would, again, to be using my snipping tool. I'm going to take a snip of this. And this time I'm going to save it. And I'll tell you why. File, save as. And I'm going to save it right on my desktop in this folder. And I'm going to call this table. Okay, so it's a table that I want students to fill out. And I want them to fill it out right here on this slideshow. So I'm going to add a new slide. I'm going to make this a blank slide. Now, instead of just pasting that table, that means that students, remember I talked before about how students can delete content. You don't want them to delete that background. You want them to be able to type right on the slide when you're going to be. So I'm going to choose the image that I have saved to my computer. I know I'm doing this all fast. Where's the table? Here it is, right here. And notice that I included it as the background. Well, it's a little bit funky, but it's really not bad. So all I have to do, notice that it's the background of the slide. It can't be moved. What do I have to do for students to have them fill this out? All I have to do is put a text box in each one of these and tell the students to type answer here. And then if I want to duplicate that and put it on every one of these boxes, I could just do Control D and again, move this down. So you see how quickly I'm able to digitize this lesson and make it easily accessible for students. Now, the next part of the lesson I noticed was a S chart right here. And this one, I think, lends itself to a Jamboard because you want students to write on this. So I think I already did it on our Jamboard. Let's take a look and see. Oh, I'm going to set the background. I've already saved the S chart. I saved it earlier today when I was playing around with this. So my S chart is right here. It becomes the background of my Jamboard. Students can't mess up my chart, but they can then, using the text tool, add their own text in here. So I could see that this would be like a collective activity that they could all do together. So anyway, those were the first steps. And on the last step of day one was to distribute a blank map. And again, the blank map I've already downloaded, and I'm going to show you quickly how I would add that map to the slide. Now, I've already saved it. Now, if I set that map as my background, and it is saved where and this is a blank map, and I want to just show you why sometimes I don't always use my maps as a background, because you can see that that map is a little bit distorted. It's stretched out a little bit. If I simply had inserted it, I'll show you the difference here. This is what the map really looked like. So when I saved it as the background, it became stretched out on the screen. So in this case, I would first insert it, and then I would take a screenshot of this and use it as the background of my slide. This gives me the ability to maybe put student directions over here on the right-hand side. It's 3:57, so I have to move on. I'm really sorry about that, because I did want to show you on day 2, I actually started to build a document about the day 2 of this lesson. So if you are a grade 7 teacher, you will see this activity posted on the website before the end of the year, I promise. And again, this will be formatted from what was formerly there before, but again, it will be digitized so that it can be pushed out to students directly. Now, I know I have only 2 minutes left, so I wanted to direct you to the resources page of my presentation, where I have some really valuable tools for you. I've recently discovered a site called Teachflix, which is created by Matt Miller of Ditch That Textbook fame, which is it's a collection of videos to use in class today that is crowdsourced by teachers like you, as it says. But not only do I like that Teachflix site, but I have downloaded his resource guide and all kinds of engaging activities to do with Teachflix in conjunction with your students, using these videos and these online activities. By the way, the Eli Whitney activity, instead of just reading about Eli Whitney and writing a biography, we're going to make the students write Eli Whitney's social networking site profile, or his page on Instagram or Facebook or Yelp or whatever. That brings it more to life for students, instead of just like writing a biography of Eli Whitney. Anyway, going back to my resources, I have, this is a Gapminder in Dollar Street. This is a great list of bell ringers and warm-up activities for students to do. This is from the New York Times. Great ways to do that activity at the start of class, that hook, that icebreaker, that activating prior knowledge, and a lot of different and engaging ways to do that. I've created some other examples here for you to look at. I'll describe them a little better on this slide, so that when it's distributed to you, you'll know exactly what you're looking for. I do want to, since it is 4 o'clock now, thank you for joining me. Apologize for not being more interactive and having you ask more questions, but I do want to look at the chat right now and see if we do have other questions here. Greg, what do we got here? Anything that we need to address?
I think I addressed most of the questions. I would just say thank you so much, Linda, for putting this together. And, as Linda said, much of the work that she does is really working with small groups of teachers or one-on-one with teachers as they do need help. So please do not hesitate to reach out, and using that feedback function is really, really, really helpful. And any time that you can share out any resources or questions or wonderings, or if you come across a great resource, we really do appreciate that as well. I am going to stop the recording momentarily, but this will be available on our website, as will the link directly to Linda's presentation. But we really just wanted to thank all of you for joining us here today, and hope you all have a wonderful rest of the week.
Thank you for joining me. I hope I didn't whiz by too fast. I did want to show you, however, that these lessons are digitized, and I wanted to do it on the sly so you could see that it really, once you've invested that time, you have that for a long time.